I'll usually like listen through with all the faders up, just everything level, and see what I have. From there, I usually start with the drums and try to get my drum sound where I want it, because me personally, I think that the drums influence the sound of a record more than anything else. Hey everybody, my name is Frank Lettieri Jr. I am a producer and a mixer based out of New Jersey, and this is my home studio. I love working in professional studios, but I figured, for demo purposes and even for smaller budget records, having a nice home studio is really beneficial. So this is the first amp I ever bought. It's a Marshall TSL 100 with a Jeff Swanson cabinet, 2x12 vintage 30s loaded in there. Has really good cleans for a Marshall. And it's a 3-channel amplifier, and it gets really raucous. But yeah, really good cleans for a Marshall. This is a 2004-2005 Ayotte Custom Kit. It was actually made for Blair Sintas, who was Alanis Morissette's drummer, and went out on tour briefly with him. Got returned back to the company, and then a LA-based drummer put it up on Reverb, and I saw it, I had to have it. I was looking for a 24-inch kick drum, and that's what this had, and really just a wonderful kit. I use sub kicks as to kind of give that real low end punch. At times they almost sound like an 808 type of drum, but very cool. SM57s on pretty much everything. For overheads, I'll use the Coles 4038s. Inside the kick, I use D112 AKG. Oh, and I forgot about this one. So this is a trick I learned from Sylvia Massey when I was out visiting with her at her studio, Studio Divine in Oregon. But it's using a regular garden hose as just kind of an extra sound source. You wrap it around the bass, just on the floor underneath the drums, just kind of spread it out. Put like a 57 or whatever microphone you want in here. I kind of tape it around, and then you just play, and it's a cool little sonic effect. It kind of cuts down on the cymbals, and really nice little trick. This was my first drum kit. It's a Pearl Export from 1998, and my 1 of 30 with this guy over here is 1 of 30 a Pearl Masters Mahogany. I believe it's the MHP, but it's all African mahogany, and I go back and forth between that and the DW and the Ayotte for recording drums. The room is just a basic family room. And it does the job. If you can utilize what you have, the space that you have, to really take advantage of just what you have, work within what you have and try to get the best sounds you can. That's the challenge. So if you want to look up here, one of the things I added was a drum cloud, which is about 6 inches of insulation. And what it does is, when I use the overheads, they're not up right now, but I have Coles 4038s, and I use those as my overheads. They're a figure 8 pattern microphone. So to avoid the reflections from the ceiling, I made this drum cloud with a friend of mine, and it basically absorbs the reflections, so you can kind of get better sounds that way. And that's something that I learned over the years, about absorption and treating a room, and how beneficial that is to your actual sound. This is the crown jewel of my studio. It is a Telefunken 251, and it comes with a really nice case. But I rented one on a record I did years ago, and I loved it so much that I made it a goal for myself to get one. And I did. I have a pair of Coles 4038s. My favorite overhead microphone, but again, you can see it in here. These guys are ribbon microphones, and they're extremely delicate. They were designed for the BBC years ago. The Beatles used them on their records, but they're extremely delicate because the ribbon mic, any type of like wind or like force can actually rupture the ribbon. So you know, that's what the plastic bag is for. Even closing the case can have a detrimental effect if it's closed too fast. If you look around here, have a bunch of acoustic panels and bass traps, just to try to make it sound as controlled as possible and absorb any of the reflections. Got another cloud up top, but it really helps to cut down on just everything sonically when you're mixing, and not have just these stray frequencies killing you. The heart of the studio and the control room is right here. Everything, this is an analog to digital analog converter. It's a Lynx Aurora 16, so it has 16 inputs. That takes the analog signal from the microphones on whatever source it may be, and they all get funneled into here, and then this goes right into the computer and into Pro Tools. I use only, for my studio monitors, I use only passive speakers. So passive speakers and active speakers. Active speakers have the amplifier on the speaker itself. Passive needs a separate amplifier. So I have two amplifiers down here to basically power these speakers. Pretty much all this stuff emulates what an entire console would do, or at least part of it. It takes the bare necessities and allows you to do that. Ideally, one day I'd love to have an SSL console, but I'm not there yet. Being a mixer and a producer, it's a creative aspect of it. Mixing can heavily impact the sound of a song. You're basically painting what you think, what your vision of the song should sound like. The mixing process for me has evolved from when I first started learning about mixing and music when I was in my teens till now. I don't ever stop kind of absorbing information, listening to how other people are doing it, seeing if there's a technique that I could take and use that I would learn from the greats, the masters, people who have been doing this all their life. Jack Joseph Puig, when I was out at NAMM, he talked about how he uses two microphones on the bottom side of the snare side, pans them hard left and hard right. And I was like sitting there and I was like, this is brilliant. Like that's, what it does is it creates this three-dimensional sound. You have the really sizzliness of those snare, the under snare side, and in the middle you have the crack of the top and the body of the top of the snare. So it just creates this wonderful stereo image. A unique thing that I do is I take a Fathead, Cascade Microphones has a microphone called the Fathead, and I take that Fathead and I use it as my room mic. But I don't put it in the same room as the drums are in. I put it between two rooms. There's an archway, and I take that microphone, it's a figure-8 pattern, and I have it pick up both rooms. And what it does is it creates this huge, it makes this room sound huge and really lively. One of the most overlooked parts of the process is pre-production. Before anything's ever recorded, is going in there and figuring out exactly what you're going to do before you even get into the studio. Because I think that's where bands make, or at least local bands, where they make the mistake is they go into a recording session without knowing exactly what's going to take place. And they start spending a lot of money, whereas if they were to go in there with a plan of attack. Even if it's great if they can record it live. I think having that band playing together as one, and everybody really just locking in together and not even worrying about a click track, like there's a certain energy that just is imparted into that recording. If I had the finances to work in a professional studio every day, or to own one, and own all the dream gear, if you will, I definitely would. But I don't think that's practical for everybody. I've worked at Pachyderm Recording Studio in Cannon Falls, Minnesota. Recorded a record out there, and it was amazing to be in that environment. I've been down to another iconic studio in Washington, D.C., actually in Arlington, Virginia, but it was a part of the D.C. hardcore scene. That was Inner Ear Studios. We recorded a couple songs there with a band, produced a band there. And then working out at Sylvia's studio, although I didn't record out there, seeing how things are done there is just very enlightening, and you could take those things and kind of apply them to your workflow.
People use music, people use photography, people use art to express themselves in a way that they can show their true emotion. I thought this was the perfect way to show, hey, things can get better. This is a way that we can help people express themselves in a new way. And we have a platform now that allows us to do that.